morning, Miramar, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Tamara G. As always, you can check us out on all of our social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of Miramar, Miramar. And we all know it's right here in Miramar. And with us today, we have Claude Lusant. He is from the economic development. He's the economic development manager for the City of Miramar. Also with us, we have Timothy Watson, public affairs specialist for the SBA, that's the Small Business Administration. And the city has teamed up with the SBA to do some great things. So we're going to be talking with Claude to see how you can get involved. So Claude, welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about what's happening.
Well, thank you. This is such a privilege for me to be able to be with you guys today. I work with the City of Miramar, the Economic Development and Housing Department. We are the primary economic development organization for the City of Miramar. So from that perspective, we help retain businesses in the city. We help recruit businesses. And most importantly, we try to empower local businesses, giving them all the tools that they need. So from that perspective, what we do, we have established partnership with major organizations like the SBA, with SCORE Broward, with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, with Florida Atlantic University, Small Business Development Center. The idea is to pretty much help local businesses where they are and help them eventually grow and create wealth.
And you know what? I think it's very important for people to know that it is very easy to do business in the City of Miramar because we want businesses to come to the city, right, Claude?
That's correct. In fact, one of the best kept secret is that we have some of the major corporations right here in the City of Miramar. Whether we are talking about major corporation like Carnival Cruise, SBA Communication, Southern Glazers Wine and Spirit, Ecolab, you're talking some of the major multi-billion-dollar organizations. They are located right here in the City of Miramar.
All right. And we want other people to be located right in the City of Miramar, because as we said, we know it's right here in Miramar. So we're going to talk a little bit more later on how people can do that. You know, if you're thinking of relocating your business, if you want to work where you live, which would be Miramar, we would love to have you as a city. And now bringing in Timothy Watson, the public affairs specialist for the SBA. Thank you so much, Mr. Watson, for joining us. How did you all come to work on this partnership with our fair city?
Well, we came to work on a partnership with the city after me having a meeting with the mayor and actually just telling him about some of the opportunities that we have for the declaration for Broward County. Of course, this particular city did not have a lot of physical damage, but I did tell him about the economic injury disaster loan, which homeowners as well as nonprofits actually qualify for low interest loans that can be repaid up to 30 years, and just giving him more briefing and information as well as his staff to actually act on the partnership to be able to supply information to survivors across the city.
And of course, you're talking about the incident that we had just a few weeks ago. It happens a lot here in South Florida, it seems recently, but that we've had a lot of flooding, and that there were a lot of not only homes that were flooded, but businesses also that suffered.
That is correct for the flooding that happened. It also covers severe storms and tornadoes between the dates of April the 12th through the 14th. The contiguous counties close to Broward County also qualify for the economic injury disaster loan, and Miramar also qualifies for physical damage loans as well. I know it might not be a lot of properties that actually had that type of injury to their property, but they do qualify for that.
And how do they find out whether they qualify or not? What do they have to do?
So we just encourage anyone who has any type of structural damage from the flood or from any time in that date to just apply online. And if they have questions or concerns, or they need to do a follow-up, they can also come into the recovery centers that we have located throughout Fort Lauderdale and Lauderhill currently. We do also have some mobile DRC units, and we have a actual locator app to be able to find these disaster recovery centers. It's housed by FEMA as well as the Small Business Administration, so they can actually go in there and apply for a grant or a small business administration loan. And we work hand in hand with FEMA as far as being able to do a referral process, because sometimes an individual or an entity might qualify for FEMA, but they need additional funds, and FEMA might not be able to support them on that. And that's what FEMA might actually refer them to the Small Business Administration or a local entity. Now, in a great scenario, they'll be referred to the Small Business Administration, and then they'll be funded. But what in the scenario if they're not funded? The Small Business Administration at that time would refer them back to FEMA, or if there are additional resources on the local or state level, refer the individual or entity to those localities.
If you're just tuning in, thank you so very much for watching the show. We are speaking today with Timothy Watson. He is the Public Affairs Specialist for SBA, that is the Small Business Administration. We also have with us Claude Lusant. He is the Economic Development Manager for the City of Miramar, and we're talking about how the city has partnered with the SBA to help out our residents, not only our residents in the City of Miramar, but all of South Florida, particularly when we've had these natural disasters and things that have happened in the last several weeks. So before I get back to Claude, I wanted to ask this question of you, Mr. Watson. So say that, maybe you did have some flooding, or you didn't have flooding, but maybe you weren't able to get to your job, or, your street was flooded out, or your employees couldn't get to work. Would someone qualify for a small business loan under that? Because they were out of business for a week. I mean, it was pretty bad here. I had to walk through the water just to even be able to get home. I had to park my car almost a mile away. So it was pretty bad.
Yes, and we actually went to some areas in Fort Lauderdale concerning those flooded areas. That was right in the declared area where the flood happened. So yes, they definitely do qualify. It doesn't matter if it was a week or a month. They did have some form of damage flooding wise, and they were affected economically as well. So we just encourage to apply, and see what we can actually do to assist you. We know you might be waiting on insurance. There is no obligation to purchase or no obligation to buy. You do this to assist yourself while you're waiting on insurance. And then when you get the insurance, you don't want to duplicate the benefits, and you usually utilize the insurance, if you do have it, to pay off the loan, which is definitely, obviously, it's good to have.
Very much so. And then if some people don't have insurance, of course, this is another way, again, for them to get that capital or to apply for the loan. And as my mother always says, nothing beats a failure but a try. So all you can do is say no, right?
Absolutely. And it never hurts to apply. And that's one of the biggest thing that we encourage, because an individual or an entity that starts the application process, who might not want to finalize it because they don't like the numbers, or it may be too much money for them to pay back, they can always withdraw their application. And if they're in a situation where they're declined, we always encourage them to come into the Small Business Administration and FEMA recovery centers, so they can see what's going on at the Disaster Recovery Center or the Business Recovery Center, and we can look into their file and assist them properly.
Perfect. Now, Claude, getting back to the city and bringing in new businesses, you mentioned earlier that we do have a lot of Fortune 500 businesses, but I think one of the very special things about the city of Miramar is that we have a lot of mom and pop businesses too. Businesses that make under 5 million, make under 1 million, and they are thriving and surviving. But what if someone wants to move their business here? They're, a small business. What should they do first when it comes to finding economic development in the city of Miramar?
Well, they usually recommend them that they should speak with me. So I'm the contact person, the one that quite often will do an in-depth analysis of what is. We usually schedule an appointment. We look at where the company is financially. And based on my assessment, then I can make recommendation whether this particular business can probably benefit from one of our partners, let's say Florida Atlantic University, if they want to do research, because they are a research component for small business development at a university level. By the way, all state universities have a small business development center attached to them. So for Broward and Palm Beach, it's FAU SBDC. For Miami, it's FIU. So basically, you have experts that pretty much can look any aspect of the business and provide expert consulting services at no cost to this particular business. Now, for people who want retired executives, people who are expert in their field, who have, let's say, whether you own a restaurant, whether you own whatever the business may be, there are some expert at SCORE, which is a national organization. We have SCORE Broward. The city just honored SCORE Broward most recently because of the tremendous service that they provide to the city, local businesses. In fact, this evening, we have a workshop sponsored by SCORE. It's about branding, how a business can take advantage of that to grow their business from just a regular business to a brand that can be identified, and from there grow their business. That's the kind of stuff that we do on a regular basis with SCORE.
And the city also does, some grants and it has things that they can do to help businesses along. I know one of the first things that they always tell you, because I've actually gone through the SCORE training as well, is that please be registered with the state as well as the city. And I'm sure Mr. Watson can tell you some of the reasons why that's important, but I will start with Claude with telling people, yes, you're doing business, and yes, you're doing great business, whatever that business may be. But if you're not registered as a state entity, you won't be eligible for some of these monies, right? So Claude,
that's correct. That's correct. In fact, during COVID, the city, we had a grant in 2020 and a grant in 2021. But one of the basic requirements were for you to register with the state. And then the second one, to also have a business tax receipt with the city. And then for you to have a business account. At a minimum, if you don't have those things, probably you're not a business. Maybe you just, there's a term that I usually use, which is, it's a hobby, because a business at a minimum have some basic requirements. They have to have, if it is possible, a SunBiz number. They have to have basic registration with the city for the world to know that it exists. And by the way, that also is applicable for a home-based business. Because it is a home-based business, that does not necessarily mean that you don't create an identity for your business. As a matter of fact, in April, the city did some training with Consolidated Credit, one of the oldest and largest financial institution in the country. We did how to use credit for your business to create wealth. Not only to grow the business, but to create wealth. So that's the kind of stuff that we are doing in the city. To go back to the grant program, we still have some federal dollars available where somebody can, from 10 to 25,000, if they need some kind of assistance. And the benefit of a grant is that you don't have to repay the grant, whereas a loan you can repay.
Right. And so, Mr. Watson, I would love for you to talk about that as well. Claude kind of just said, the bare minimum is to be registered with the state, also to get your tax business license from the city where you are located, even an EIN number. We didn't mention that from the federal government because that means you actually are paying taxes. But why is this so important? I know for a fact that during COVID, I was able to get a small loan from the SBA for my business. I'm in radio, and there was no happenings going on, like no events, nothing during COVID. And because of that, I was able to secure some monies to, keep me afloat until things turned around again, because there were no events happening. And that's what I do. I host events. So, but the bare minimum, even on the application, was everything that Claude mentioned. Did I have a bank account? Did I have an EIN number? Was I registered with the state? Did I have my tax ID from the town that I'm in? So how important is that when dealing with the SBA?
It is very important when dealing with the SBA because your file or your application can be rejected for a number of reasons. They first start off as the eligibility requirements, looking at the credit history, the ability to repay, but as well as Claude, as well as you, Tamara, have already mentioned, the EIN number, some type of legitimacy as far as the business existence is concerned, as far as it being a city or state business, whether it's a local mom and pops. We need some form of identifying information to make sure that it's a legitimized or legitimate business, and it's operating on the standards of the law, to make sure that they can be funded. Or if they do not have certain information, even a bank account, the bank account has to be under the business name. It cannot be under a personal name. And you can have actually gotten approved, and because of our stipulations under federal guidelines, we cannot fund a personal bank account, and it is a business. So it's a variety of different reasons that someone could actually be declined, but we do have a reconsideration and appeal process for those who might be in that situation, or someone who might actually come into that type of situation, to be able to go through the reconsideration process, reading the letter, because a lot of people sometimes they throw them away, and we can retrieve them, but just trying to assist them as best as we can. Now, I do want to mention some of the deadline dates real quick for these loans. For the physical disaster loan for property and structural damage, and sometimes this consists of property damage that is machinery for some of the businesses and nonprofits. That deadline date is June 26th of 2023. Now, for the economic injury disaster loan, that deadline is January 2024, and that covers a variety of different things for working capital for these businesses and nonprofits. Just like you said previously about a business being shut down because of the flood, they can recapture those funds that they lost. Maybe they were not able to pay rent because, it's a flood this time, but what if it was a tornado previously, like we had for Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Nicole? They can recapture those funds as long as the paperwork is suffice as far as capturing what they lost. The Small Business Administration, as well as FEMA on the other side with grants, will make them back whole for property damage, as well as the economic injury disaster loan.
Perfect. So again, coming up, those big deadlines, the physical disaster loan deadline is June 26th, and the EIDL loan is 2024. So definitely, where can people go for more information, Mr. Watson, to register for these two types of financial aid?
They can log on to the SBA.gov website to be able to apply for a loan. They can actually come in to one of the disaster recovery centers that are located in Fort Lauderdale and Lauderhill. We also had some mobile DRC areas that are located on the FEMA Disaster Recovery Center locator, which they can type into a search engine and type in their city, and it will basically pull up the closest location to wherever they're at. And they'll be able to go in person, and especially if they have questions, it's their first time applying. But we do encourage them to apply before they come And if they have any questions or concerns, or they need to submit documentation, the agents will be able to assist them right there because they'll be able to see their information. And we did really stress for them to go into these centers and talk to someone in person versus talking to somebody over the phone, so they can get a clear understanding of what's going on with their application and knowing the application process.
Perfect. SBA.gov. And Claude, how can people get in touch with you if they are interested in moving their business, starting their business in the city of Miramar?
Well, they can always reach me in particular at 954-602-3114. 954-602-3114, or they can go to the city website and then check economic development, and then they're gonna find a wealth of information on our website.
Sounds good. And that website is MiramarFL.gov.
Correct.
Thank you so much, Claude. We're saying he is the Economic Development Manager for the City of Miramar, as well as Timothy Watson, the Public Affairs Specialist for the Small Business Administration. Thank you all both for being here today. Again, those deadlines are June 26th for the physical disaster loan, and the EIDL is January 2024. So if you did have any property damage or anything that happened during this flooding and the storms that we've had recently, please go to SBA.gov, fill out the application. You never know, you might end up, being able to be helped with your business.
I also want to provide the phone number as well as another email or another website address, which is disasterloanassistance.gov. And the customer service number is 1-800-659-2955.
Okay, say that number again, please.
1-800-659-2955.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you all for being with us today. And thank you for watching Good Morning Miramar. I'm your host, Tamara G. Until next time, see you.
Thank you.